Today we are going to discuss about design and development of embedded products. First, we know that a embedded system consists of hardware and firmware. Today we are going to learn about embedded firmware design and development. What is an embedded firmware? It is responsible for controlling the various peripherals of the embedded hardware and generating response in accordance with the functional requirements mentioned in the requirements of for the particular embedded product. When we developing an embedded product, particular embedded product, first we require to collect the functional, what are the functional requirements of the product, and according to that product we are collect some embedded hardware. These embedded hardwares are controlled by the embedded firmware. So firmware is considered as the master brain of the embedded system. So here, imparting intelligence to an embedded system is a one-time process. So uh, we need to, if we want to control that all hardware, we need to insert a intelligence into that embedded system. So it's a one-time process, and it can happen at any stage, and it can be immediately after the fabrication of the embedded hardware or at a later stage. Once the intelligence is imparted to the embedded product by embedding the firmware in the hardware, the product starts functioning properly and will continue serving the assigned task till the hardware till the hardware breakdown occurs or a corruption in the embedded firmware occurs. So first we need to impart the intelligence to embedded system. It can be done at any stage of the design. Once we impart intelligence to the embedded product, it works properly. So up, up to a breakdown occurs or a corruption in the embedded firmware occurs. In the case of hardware breakdown, the damaged component may need to be replaced by a new component. Or for firmware corruption, we can do some firmware should be reloaded to bring back the embedded product to the normal functioning. For example, coming back to the newborn baby, the newborn baby is very adaptive in terms of intelligence, meaning it learns from mistake and updates its memory each time a mistake uh, or a deviation in expected behavior occurs, whereas most of the embedded system are less adaptive or non-adaptive. So for most of the embedded product, the embedded firmware is stored at a permanent memory, that is which is the permanent memory, ROM, and they are not alterable by end users. But in some case, some embedded product used in control and instrumentation domain are adaptive. This adaptability is achieved by making use configurable parameters which are stored in alternable permanent memory storage, like NVRAM, flash, etc. So the parameters get updated in accordance with the deviation from expected behavior, and firmware make use of these parameters. Designing an embedded firmware requires understanding of the particular embedded product hardware, the hardware such as component interfacing, memory map details, port details, configuration, and register details of various hardware chips used. And it also requires some programming language. such as it's either high level language or it uses a low level or assembly language, etc. So when we design a embedded firmware, we must know about the what are the embedded hardwares required, and the same as the programming language is used. Then embedded firmware development process start with the conversion of the firmware requirements into a program model using modeling tools like UML or flowchart based representation. So when we develop this embedded firmware, the first process is to convert from the firmware requirement. What are the firmware requirements are the what are the software required for that embedded product, which will be converted into a program model. So for that modeling, we are use some tools like UML, Uniform Modeling Language, or flowchart based representation. The UML diagram or flowchart gives a diagrammatic representation of the decision items to be taken and the tasks to be performed. Once the program model is created, the next step is the implementation of the task. So first we need to convert from firmware requirements to program model. Once we create this program model, next step is to implement that task and action by capturing the model using a language which is understandable by the target processor or controller. Next, we will discuss about embedded firmware design approaches. So, firmware design approaches depends on two factors. Mainly, first one is it depends on the complexity of the function to be performed. There are lots of functions are there to accomplish the functions of an embedded product. So, what is the complexity of each of functions? And second one, the speed of operation required. These are the main two factors depends upon the firmware design approach. Then there are two basic approaches are used for embedded firmware design. First one is conventional procedure based firmware design, and second one is embedded operating system based design. The conventional procedure design, also known as super loop model. Super loop model. So first we will discuss about super loop based model. Here the approach is mainly used for the application that are not time critical. So if there is some time missing, deadlines are accessible, and also the response time is not so important. So for that application we are using this super loop based approach. It is very similar to a conventional procedural programming. In this procedural programming language, the code is executed task by task. If there are n tasks are there, then it executed the first task. The task listed at the top of the program code is executed first, and the task just below the top are executed after completing the first task. That is, this is a true procedural one. So in a multitask based system, that means if there are n tasks are there, then each task is executed in a serial manner. So here we are giving the firmware execution flow. First, then first one is configure the common parameters required for that firmware design, and second step is initialization for various hardware components. We know that there are memories are there, IO ports are there, registers are there. Those hardware components are initialized first. Then start the first task, execute the first task. then execute the second task. After completion of the execution of first task, then execute the second task, then execute next task, etc., up to execute the last defined task. Then again jump back to the first task and follow this same procedure. That is, this procedure is repeated. So the corresponding C code is here. It starts from void main. Then first step is configuration, all the common parameters. Then initialize the hardware such as memory, registers, etc. Then we are use a infinite while loop. While is equal to 1 means it's always initialized. Then it execute the first task. After completion of the task 1, it will execute task 2, then up to task n. Then again we are going to repeat this task. So here operations are infinite loop based approach. So from this firmware execution sequence, the order in which the tasks to be executed are fixed. So first task will be executed first, then next and next likewise, and they are hard coded in the code itself. Also the operation is infinite loop based approach. Then almost all tasks in the embedded applications are non-ending and are repeated infinitely throughout the operation. So in the above C code, you can see that the task 1 to n are performed one after another, and when the last task, that is nth task, is executed, here this is and the task is executed, the firmware execution again redirected to task 1 and it is repeated forever in the loop. This repetition is achieved by using this infinite loop. Here the while loop is the infinite loop. So this is the approach. This approach is also referred to as super loop based approach. Super loop based approach. So it is, therefore it is known as super loop based approach. So since the tasks are running inside an infinite loop, the only way to come out of the loop is either using a hardware reset or an interrupt assertion. So if we want, this program is executed infinite time. So how to we are exit from this task? We can two option. One is hardware reset or an interrupt assertion. So a hardware reset means it brings the program execution back to the main loop. So when we press a hardware reset, then program execution is back to the main loop. But in the case of a interrupt request, it suspends the task execution temporarily and perform the corresponding interrupt routine. And on completion of that interrupt routine, it restart the task execution from the point where it got interrupted. So when an interrupt occurred, then the current execution task will be suspended and it will perform the in corresponding interrupt routine or interrupt service routine. After the completion of interrupt service routine, it will restart the task execution from where the point it got interrupted. So in the what are the main features of a super loop based design? First one is it does not require an operating system. That is important. It does not require an operating system because there is no need for scheduling which task is to be executed and assigning priority to each task. In the case of super loop based design, each task is in a fixed order. So we need not be schedule the task, and also we can't assign priority to each task. In a superloop based design, the priorities are fixed and the order in which the tasks to be executed are also fixed. Hence, the code for performing this task will be residing in the code memory without an operating system image. So, it does not require a operating system. Then next one, the type of the design is deployed in low cost embedded products, and products where response time is not time critical, and some embedded product demands this type of approach if some tasks itself are sequential. For example, reading writing data to and from a card using a card reader requires a sequence of operation like checking the presence of card, authenticating the operation, reading or writing, etc. It should strictly follow a specified sequence, and combination of this series of tasks constitute a single task, namely data reader write. There is no use in putting the subtask into independent tasks and running them parallelly. It won't work at all. So, a typical example of a superloop based product is an electronic video game toy containing keypad and display unit. The program running inside the product may be designed in such a way that it reads the keys to detect whether the user has given any input. If any key is pressed is detected, then the graphic display is updated. So the keyboard scanning and display updating happens at a reasonably high rate. Even if the application misses a key press, it won't create any critical issues. So it treated as a bug in the firmware. So it is not economical to embed an operating system into low cost products, and it is an utter waste to do so if response requirements are not critical or not crucial. So if we when we use a electronic video game toy, then when we press a key, then each time the graphic display is updated. So if we sometimes if we press a key that does not detect, then or application misses some key press, it does not affect the performance of that electronic video game. So we does not require a operating system for a low cost product. The superloop based design is simple one and a straightforward without any OS related overhead. The next one is, what are the major drawback of this approach? First one is, if any failure occurs in any part of a single task, it will affect the total system. That means if the program hangs up at some point while executing a task, it will remain there forever, and ultimately the product stops functioning. So there are remedy measure for overcoming this. Either we can use a hardware or software watchdog timers which helps in coming out from the loop when an unaccepted failure occurs, or when the processor hangs up. So but when we use a watchdog timers, then it make a additional hardware cost and also a firmware overhead, because we need to control this we need the programs to control this watchdog timers also. So another major drawback of the superloop design is the lack of real timeliness. If the number of tasks to be executed within an application increases, then the time at which each task is repeated also increases. So this brings the probability of missing out some events. So that is for example, in a system with key parts, according to the superloop design, there will be a task for monitoring the keypad connected IO lines, and this need not be the task running while you press the keys. Sometimes the key press even may not be in a sync with the key press monitoring task within this firmware. So in order to identify the key press, you may have to press the keys for sufficiently long time till the keypad status monitoring task is executed internally by the firmware. This will lead to the lack of real timeliness. There are corrective measures for this also. The best advised option in use interrupts for external events requiring real-time attention. So next one is embedded operating system based approach. In embedded operating system approach, the operating system it contains an operating system, and it can be either a general purpose operating system GPOS or a real time operating system RTOS. So it is mainly used to host the user written application firmware. So in a general purpose operating system, it is similar to a conventional personal computer based application development, where the device containing an operating system such as Windows, Unix, Linux, etc. for desktop PC, and you will be creating and running user application on top of it. Example of a GPOS used in embedded product development is Microsoft Windows XP Embedded. So, example of embedded product using Microsoft Windows XP operating system are personal digital assistants PDAs. Some PDAs it uses the GPOS embedded products are Microsoft Windows XP OS are handheld devices or portable devices and point of sale terminals. Then this use of GPOS in embedded product merges the differentiation of embedded system and general computing system in terms of OS. For developing application on the top of the OS, the OS support API are used. Similar to the different hardware specific drivers, OS based application also requires driver software for different hardware present on the board to communicate with them. So in an general purpose embedded system, it requires a driver software mainly for to control the different hardwares. The next one is real-time operating system. Real-time operating system based design approaches employed in embedded product demanding real-time responses. So those embedded product which are demanding real-time responses, for that system we are using real-time operating system. So real-time response operating system respond in a timely and a predictable manner to event. So when an event occurs, it should timely and predictable manner. So it responds to in a timely base, and we should know how it uh, responds. Real-time operating system contains real-time kernel, which is responsible for performing preemptive multitasking, scheduler for scheduling tasks, multiple threads, etc. So these are the some functions of a kernels that is present in real-time operating system. A real-time operating system allows flexible scheduling of system resources like the CPU and memory. So it containing CPU scheduling and also memory scheduling, and also it offers some way to communicate between tasks. So here some of the example of RTOS are Windows CE, PSOS, VxWorks, ThreadX, Micro C or OS2, Embedded Linux, Symbian, etc. Then the mobile phones and PDAs based on Windows CE or Windows Mobile Platform and handheld devices, etc. are the example of embedded product that containing RTOS. And most of the mobile phones are built around the popular RTOS is Symbian. That's all about embedded firmware development and design.